If those droids attacking us, Padme's probably in trouble.
My lady gave us very specific instructions to remain here.
Oh, fiddlesticks! We must have been trying saving her.
Jar Jar Binks, have you gone completely mad? You'll do more harm than good.
Here we go. Bombad Jedi. Obviously from the title, Jar Jar Binks is in the show.
Oops!
Jar Jar, look out!
This was the first Jar Jar episode. So there was a lot of pressure. You know, George wanted us to bring back Jar Jar.
Misa no thinks so.
These are swamp dwellers just like Misa. I will convince them of our good fellowship.
I think early on, George expressed an interest that because we were in this time period of the Clone Wars, that he wanted to see Jar Jar again. And, you know, Henry Gilroy and I thought, well, perhaps an animated venue, you know, like the Clone Wars is gonna, you know, fit really well for our friend Jar Jar.
Jar Jar works as a cartoon so well. It's unbelievable. And arguably it's because he was pretty much a cartoon to begin with, but it didn't take much to make him look like he had been designed for the Clone Wars in the first place. He's just got very exaggerated proportions and exaggerated features, and the way he moves and the way he sounds is very sort of broad anyway.
Well, that's the end of our ship. Typical.
Introducing 3PO alongside Jar Jar became very interesting because we took one of the classic characters who had a lot of good comedic moments in the original trilogy.
Come back at once. You haven't finished with me yet.
With Jar Jar, who was, you know, the comedy in The Phantom Menace. And having them interact became very interesting. It was kind of like this old and this new idea, and 3PO at times is not very keen on the way Jar Jar behaves or how Jar Jar is.
I don't think that requires translation.
Yeah, almost in some ways representing some of the older fans and how they feel about Jar Jar versus the newer fans and how they feel about Jar Jar. So maybe that parallel will, you know, help some people see perhaps some good in Jar Jar.
Misa okay, Threeso! Misa okay!
It was a major plot point that Jar Jar wear a robe and be mistaken for a Jedi, so that was one of the earlier sort of shows where you would see one person wearing a cloak for a great deal of time.
Oh, Jedi?
Jedi? Where's a Jedi?
The time it takes to render that stuff out and the cost of simulating the cloth is really a reason why you don't see it too much.
Ah! Forget surrender!
I think Jar Jar wears the robe quite well.
And actually, I tried to, again, pay homage to A New Hope, where the droids have cornered Jar Jar and they're shooting at him, and he seems to vanish from beneath his cloak, as we saw Obi-Wan do in his battle with Darth Vader.
I didn't even know that.
You didn't even know that?
You didn't tell me that.
So the idea was...
Probably could have done it better.
Bombad Jedi was the first time we saw a Newt Gunray in the show.
Where is Senator Amidala?
I really like the Nemoidians anyway. I think they're kind of fun. They're actually sort of interesting villains for the Jedi because they aren't warriors, they're not Sith, they're not necessarily scary, there's just lots of them. And, you know, they're very sort of greedy and scheming, and I think that Gunray always looked interesting. I did especially like his episode 2 look with this sort of crazy, bizarre headdress thing, and then what looks like an orange knitted cardigan on top of what looks like a leather jacket. I mean, it's pretty out there. So when we decided that that was going to be the outfit that Gunray would wear, at least for now, in the show, I was pretty happy because I always thought that that was one of the funnier looking pieces of clothing that anyone had shown up in at all.
Shall we go?
His skin color matches what he looks like in the movie. Tim Brock even painted veins into the skin. There's a degree of realism to the Gunray paint scheme that you wouldn't get with a human character, but it works because he's so bizarre looking anyway. If Gunray isn't your favorite Nemoidian, just hold on. There's more on the way. And then there's Rhodia, which was a big deal because Rhodia is where Rhodians are from, and we'd seen Greedo in episode 4, so we knew what Rhodians looked like, but we hadn't seen their home planet before. It was pretty wide open. Like, we knew that Rhodia would be steamy and tropical, and that it would be a fairly lush planet, but beyond that, there was no sort of hard and fast rules. At first, it looked more like Thailand and Angkor Wat, or Cambodia. It had sort of Middle Eastern influences for a while. Just nailing down Rhodia turned out to be pretty challenging. It's not really evident in the episode, but the idea with Rhodia is that the plants grow backwards. The glowing fruit that you see is the roots of the tree, and then the bigger leaves that are underneath the water where Jar Jar is swimming around are the actual bulk of the plant. It's just growing downwards.
That was kind of a first big new planet we went on besides Teth.
Yep.
At least in our production order, that was kind of a big deal to be doing this big kind of swamp planet with big domed cities.
We spent all this time sort of figuring out roughly what Rhodia was going to look like, and then at the very last minute, Dave told us that George envisioned Rhodia as having bubbles or domes over all of its cities all the time.
I have a very bad feeling about this.
Welcome to the Separatist way, Senator.
Viceroy Gunray's orders.
But I really wanted to approach the story as a fairy tale.
She's up in that tower?
You went to a lot of myth into
Yeah,
it,
the
like-
classic
well, the
fairy
elements
tale
of it.
elements, right. And
The dragon in the castle.
Exactly. The castle here, we've got Padme, who's our damsel in distress.
Please, Uncle Anno, don't do this.
You could say
So she's a lot more active.
Oh, she's definitely not going to end up as the damsel in distress. But she's locked in the tower by the evil king, who you might think of as Newt Gunray. And then you've got C-3PO as the faithful handmaiden.
3PO.
Mistress Padme, oh, thank the Maker you're safe.
And Dave kind of read the script. He goes, "You're missing the dragon."
Yeah.
And that was the inspiration for the Quasselma.
Quasselma.
Yeah, which is this creature that lives underneath the castle.
And it was kind of an old Russell Chong retake on a McCory design from, I think, as far back as Dagobah.
There's a bad boogie monster down there.
And Jar Jar is the court jester who ends up in the suit of armor of the knight. Obviously, in our episode, it's not an actual suit of armor, but
Right.
usually when the fool ends up in the knight's armor, everybody wants to kill him. And we have the same elements in the story.
And that plays right along with what the fans think.
You're either the bravest or the most foolish Jedi I have ever met.
I'm just a Gungan, and I don't think I'm either.